New horror story. I found myself living next door. I found the spare key taped under my bathroom sink 3 days after moving into my new apartment. It didn't fit any lock I could find. The landlord had sworn the place was empty when I signed the lease. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, decent neighborhood. Previous tenant moved out 2 months ago. Everything seemed normal when I did the walkthrough. Clean walls, fresh paint, that generic apartment smell of industrial carpet cleaner and cheap air freshener. But after living here for a week, I started noticing things that didn't add up. The hot water ran out too quickly, like someone else was using it. The grocery store downstairs knew my order before I'd ever shopped there. The usual? 2% milk, sourdough bread, those fancy crackers? I'd never bought fancy crackers in my life. My neighbor Mrs. Chen kept asking when my roommate would be back from their business trip, insisting she'd seen them just last month. I told her I lived alone, but she gave me this confused look and said, "But what about the person in 4B? Same apartment number as yours." My apartment was 4B. There was no other 4B. That's when I really started paying attention to the mail. Mixed in with my bills and junk mail were letters addressed to Jordan Martinez at my exact address. Credit card statements, magazine subscriptions, a renewal notice for a gym membership. I asked the postal worker about it and she shrugged. Been delivering to Jordan Martinez at 4B for 3 years now. Nice person, always says thank you. I'd been living here for 3 weeks. The spare key became an obsession. I tried it on every door in the building, every cabinet, every lock I could find. Nothing. But it was clearly meant for something. The metal was worn smooth from use and it felt warm in my hand, like it had been recently handled. Last Saturday, I was lying in bed when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Normal enough, except they stopped right outside my door. I heard the soft jingle of keys, then the sound of a lock turning. But my deadbolt was already engaged and I hadn't heard anyone unlock it. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but when I went to check my locks, I found something that made my blood freeze. There was a second deadbolt on my door, same make, same model, installed about 6 inches below the first one. I'd been living here for almost a month, walking past this door every single day, and I swear on my life that second lock had never been there before. The spare key fit perfectly. When I turned it, I heard something that shouldn't have been possible. The sound of another lock disengaging somewhere deeper in the apartment. I followed the sound to my bedroom closet. The back wall, which I'd assumed was solid, swung inward like a hidden door. Behind it was another apartment. An exact mirror image of mine, but lived in. Rumpled bed, dishes in the sink, clothes folded neatly in the dresser. A coffee mug still warm on the nightstand. Mail scattered across a desk, all addressed to Jordan Martinez. And hanging on the bathroom mirror was a photo that made me stop breathing. It was me. Standing in this exact apartment, smiling at the camera, wearing clothes I'd never owned. But written on the back in handwriting I didn't recognize were the words, "Jordan's first day in the new place." I heard the front door of the other apartment open. Footsteps, someone whistling a tune I somehow knew all the words to. "Honey, I'm home," called a voice that was almost but not quite my own. "Did you miss me while I was at work?" I looked down at my hands and realized I was holding 2 sets of keys. One for my apartment and one for theirs. The spare key was still in my palm, but now there was another one. Identical but older, more worn. As the footsteps got closer, I tried to remember which apartment I'd woken up in this morning. Which bed was mine? Which life I'd been living? The whistling stopped right outside the hidden door. "I know you're in there," the voice said gently. "It's time to switch back now. You've had your turn being real." I looked at the photo again, and my reflection in the bathroom mirror seemed to wave at me with someone else's hand. The door handle began to turn, and I realized I couldn't remember which side of the mirror I belonged on. Thank you for listening. If you really like the story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more daily horror stories. Thanks.